Hello, fellow lovers and movie lovers alike. I'm Hailey.
And I'm Javi.
And you're listening to the Just Be Poly podcast, where we discuss movies and in the end answer the question,
could these problems be solved with polyamory?
Today we're talking about Frida. This film was Javi's choice. Javi, why did you pick this film?
I picked this film because a long time ago you picked this film. But I didn't like it a lot.
So it drove me crazy that he didn't like it because I knew he would like it so much. And he was just being a butthole the whole time. They wanted to shut it off. And yeah, it wasn't fun.
Yeah. Let me explain something to the people real quick. So the first time I saw this film, I did not like it. Not because it was poorly made or anything, but because I felt that at that point in my life, I had some of the same toxic qualities that was in Frida's husband, Diego. He was reflecting a lot of unfaithful and lying traits that I also harbored, and I poo-pooed this film because of it. But, now years later, I've had a lot of personal growth, and this time I was actually really looking forward to seeing this movie through the lens of an evolved poly person. And spoiler alert, I loved the out of this movie.
It's because it's an amazing film.
It's pretty awesome.
It really confused me when he didn't like it, and re-entering that experience and like getting to the point where, it's mutually understood that this film was amazing was very cathartic for me. And I'm really glad that we had this experience together, reflecting on this same movie years apart in our journey as a polyamorous couple. It's a great film. I've seen it a million times and it still does not disappoint.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. So, Frida is a strong, bold woman. Frida has a romantic, sensitive heart. Frida loves someone no matter what race, gender, body, or age. Frida paints not the world outside, but the world within. Frida cares not for political or religious conventions. Frida lives her life authentically. Frida is not apologetic. Frida smokes cigarettes and drinks and curses and kisses many with passion. Not even death can stop her, because she lives on in her paintings and in her life's example. Viva la vida. Long live life. Frida.
That was really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was poetic.
I kept seeing little synopses online, and they were all like, after a bus crash, blah, 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 and it's just kind of like,
After a bus crash, Frida Khalo rises from the ashes like a phoenix. Coming to theaters near you.
Boing. Stupid 2000s. Yeah, that's two 2000s movies we picked now.
That I as you were speaking, I was feeling inspired just listening to you, and that's just like that's her impact even through you just talking about her. Mm-hmm. It's inspiring just to hear about it. It was so funny when I realized that I had been spelling Frida wrong. I was spelling it Freida, Frida, and it's spelled Frida. So I was like, okay, got it. That's Frida, and this is Frida, because Frida's Mexican, and that's the difference. But they're actually both of German origin. And I was like, oh, like, duh, because isn't her dad German? And he is. I think it's really ironic that the name origin of Frida is peace and calm. It's really not present in her life.
Frida is a lot of things, but gentle she is not.
No, or calm, there's chaos present. Yeah. So what Frida means to me, I find Frida to be very inspirational. I admire her strength and her vivaciousness. She is so authentic, like Javi said, and she's just in your face. She lives and loves to the fullest, and she rises from the ashes over and over again. They're literally breaking her back many times throughout her life. Well, I'm sure you probably came across this in your researches that she had like polio and spinal bifida and was diagnosed with one of those things from like the age of 6 or something.
Lady, I got a whole section on my notes about her medical history.
Okay, lady.
I'm gonna give you the lowdown because it blew my mind. All the crap this lady had to put up with.
You hinted at this, and I'm so curious what you're talking about.
So, At age 6, she got polio. All right. And she was bullied for it too, which is just crazy.
Well, okay. So polio, I'm not sure what's what, but I was understanding about how she wore her clothes and they were very baggy to hide any cast that she had to wear, or any metallic corset she had to wear. But apparently her skirts were very loose and like flowy to hide the way she walked. So I'm wondering if that was coming through at her age, and that's what people were picking on. Maybe
so. The dad saw 2 options for her, that she could just stay bedridden and live this life of just being wheeled around everywhere. But he really encouraged Frida to get up and like learn sports and learn how to wrestle and do all these things and run around. Even though you got polio at 6, it doesn't matter. Like, get up and be strong. And I think the dad was like super, super important in Frida's life.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very strong support for her.
You saw that in your research?
Yeah, and in the movie too.
Yeah, because I didn't look into the relationship between her and her dad, but I did feel that what they were bringing through in the movie was really positive. Like in that one scene where they're all taking a family portrait, and Frida's running fashionably late and then comes in a suit with her hair slicked back, right? Something like that. And then she stands, and then her mother's furious, eyes rolling, arms crossing, like whatever, the whole thing. And then his dad says to her mom, we always wanted a son, or like, didn't you always want a son?
I always wanted a boy.
And like, just like think of that reaction. I could see somebody nowadays reacting horribly to their, maybe cis daughter dressing up in male attire.
Yeah, he was very progressive and just very loving.
Truly, hugely progressive for the time. Wow. Yeah. So that is amazing. The relationship that came through in the film and is coming through in your research too.
Yeah. So after polio at 6, she was sexually abused by a female teacher.
I did not know that.
I think it was when she was in middle school or something. Horrifying. Then she had the infamous bus accident. Broke her legs, shattered her hip and her spine, and just crazy stuff. She had a chronic fungal infection in her hand.
Wow.
She had syphilis. She was, most of her life depression and anxiety chronically. Spinal issues. Then she had to go in the years between 1940 and 1954. Just between those 14 years, she had to go through 28 different steel, leather, and plaster corsets.
Wow.
She had an amputated right leg. She had pneumonia, bronchitis that turned into pneumonia, and towards the end of her life, she started getting addicted to painkillers and morphine and things like that.
With all the pain that she was dealing with.
Yeah, there was one moment that was crazy where towards the end of the movie, she just wakes up from a dream, and she wakes up screaming for the morphine for the painkillers, like, because she just woke up in extreme pain and she just needed it to go right back to sleep. And it's like, wow. And nobody could know for sure exactly. Frida died in the night, but some people,
interesting. I didn't know that.
Middle of the night.
Huh.
Some people say that she actually died from an overdose to the painkillers because her nurse found her and said that there were less pills in her bottle than there were the day before. So some people think that she OD'd during the night because it was just too much pain or addiction and all these things. And attempted suicide to OD one time. The film didn't go into that, but
no, they did not. They left that right off.
Yeah, and that's not confirmed, but that's a report something that I kept seeing in my research. So either way, crazy amount of pain in her life, and I think that kind of molded her into a very strong and bold and very resilient woman who just didn't care what people thought. She's very strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very strong.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So I was just circling back. I wanted to talk about the first time I watched it. I don't know if I told you about that, but I was thinking about it because, as you know, I was interested in maybe pursuing becoming an art teacher and using my illustration degree through that. I've been thinking about lately, especially the ways that teachers impact me. And I think that everyone can like reflect on their life and think about a teacher who they remember saying something to them. And I can think of like 12 different teachers I have memories with, and some were positive and some were negative, but they're still with me when I reflect on teachers that I know in my life. So I was thinking about that, and that's so crazy. The way that I was introduced to this movie was an art teacher in my high school in Fort Myers, and he also played Basquiat. And I do not like Basquiat. I really don't, but I appreciate and respect all artists. Anyway, he played Frida, and I was like, this is very sexual for high school, but I think I was a senior, so I was like, I don't care, he's cool. And I just didn't expect that the way that this film would impact me, that I would be sitting here and talking about it like this with you 10 years later. So yeah, that's how this movie entered my life, and I thought it was really cool. It's like when I think back on that whole experience I had with that teacher, that movie was the most valuable thing he gave me.
You have 7 years of art school under your belt and many more of actual experience, painting and digital art and so much more. And our home is filled with your art.
It's filled. And also your art. You are a talented artist.
A little bit of my art, but any art talent that I have has come from your guidance.
He's getting so much better, y'all.
Yeah.
He's doing great.
You as a visual artist, please give us some insight on what you thought of not only the art in the film, the actual paintings themselves. I would love to hear your analysis on Frida's paintings, but maybe whatever you noticed from the actual movie visually.
Javi thinks I'm so deep, and I love it. There's so much faith in his eyes right now. Okay, awesome. And this is an easy movie to comment on with the visuals because it's literally about an artist, which I think makes it a little easier to talk about. But also, it's like whenever you want to tackle an artist, you're going to learn a lot when you delve into it. So it's not like, with Frida, I think it's an artist that I like a lot, actually. So, and it's actually funny. I think the first time I saw her work, I was like, meh. And I think that I approached a lot of things with a lighter heart when I was younger. I think any child would approach things with a lighter attitude, of course. And when I say child, I was talking about me as a teen, which I guess isn't exactly, the same thing. But I remember being unimpressed. And the older I get, the maybe like in a sense, the darker my mind is in terms of what I understand about the world and how it can be sometimes. And not just joy as a kid or a teen, but pain, so much suffering. Everyone has their own suffering. Everyone's pain is so present. And the more that I understood suffering in my life, the more I understood Frida. And I think that is so profound. I love that too, that art can change meanings, like all things can change meanings. Like you taste an orange and then you taste it again and it doesn't taste the same. And I love that art can make you feel so much sometimes. But what I love about this is that she's just like some lady in Mexico, and she can move all these people to care about her because all of her work, well, not all of it. I think I actually found out that there's a large portion of artworks and not all of them are portraits, but the ones that people care about are the portraits. And I think that's really cool. People love the story, and they love hearing about a strong woman who doesn't look like everyone else, is maybe a bit of like an underdog dealing with a lot of obstacles, triumphing over them, or seeming to, because it seems like, especially because you just talked about her potential OD, that there was a lot of suffering and a lot of struggling. But yeah, so that's what people see. That's what I see in the paintings that are so popular. The portraits are metaphors, that are visual metaphors with themes of pain. And I think that, a different person will look at the painting and see different symbols in certain aspects that maybe would just take a little bit of understanding her to understand itself, or like understanding how she looks at things and what the climate was like at the time. So like apparently wearing the dresses that she was wearing was, and this is information that is loosely in my head, but like my understanding is that people were wearing certain dresses to, represent a certain type of matriarch that was before the time. So women were literally wearing clothes to represent femininity and dignity, maybe power. So that's interesting too, even the clothes that she wore in it. So like one thing I learned was that there was this one painting. This one's actually my favorite painting. It's what's it called? The Two Fridas, I think, is like I might be wrong on that title, but it's easy to find and it's very popular. And it's the one where she's there's two of her dressed differently with hearts exposed on their chests, and the ones on the right is wearing a white dress, which is actually like a European dress. Apparently, like the way that it buttons up on the neck really high and stuff. It reminds me actually of a similar painting of Pocahontas when she went to Europe. Like she was wearing this like buckle hat, I think, and just like a high buttoned thing on her neck. So that was the European dress wear of the time. And on the other side is Frida in Mexican dress wear and representing, I think, what I just communicated, like that matriarch descendant kind of dress wear. It's like a strong symbol. So that's the Diego, that's the Frida that Diego loved. And then the European aspect is the one that Diego doesn't. And that's what Frida said that this painting was about, was talking about that. The way that the arteries are wrapped around. I noticed that with the Frida who is of the Mexican attire, she's got her arteries to her heart wrapped around her arm, and the European one doesn't. And the European one's also holding scissors that severs the heart. It's the only place she's bleeding. And I think that represents her disconnection from her heart to Diego in this identity. And then the one with her in the Mexican attire, she has a portrait of Diego in her hand that apparently she kept until the day she died. And that is, none of her veins are broken on that side. That's what's kind of like fueling her love. And then they both are like, there's this thing about Frida where in all her pictures, she's looking so defiantly into the lens of whatever is, capturing her, and her defiant eyes are a big theme in her portraits. So I thought that was really cool, learning about that painting. Very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's very insightful. Yeah,
and there were some cool quotes too of the men in her life. So Andre Breton, if I'm saying his name right, was the leader of the Surrealist, and he described her paintings as being like a ribbon around a bomb. Isn't that interesting?
I like that metaphor.
And then Diego, who of course we all understand is a big fan of Frida, he said, "Never before had a woman put such agonizing poetry on a canvas as Frida did."
Straight up.
Yeah. It's so true though. Like agonizing poetry, like you just look at the work that is especially targeted in the film and you just think that is tragic. What is happening? And there's so many themes of blood too. I think martyrdom is a common theme throughout her work as well.
Yeah, on that same vein, my favorite quote from the movie is she's at the top of the Aztec pyramid with Tarkovsky, Russian dude. She says, "At the end of the day, we can endure more than we think we can." And then Tarkovsky says, "Your paintings express what we all feel. We are all alone in pain."
You just dropped your research like a mic drop.
Yeah. Think about that.
The last note about the art is the major influence, or one of them, was called an ex voto, and it's an inexpensive commission by self-taught artist. and they usually paint them on tin, and they're created as an offering to saints for answered prayers. So some people would have like simple paintings of them, like they describe the event and write what the commission was for as a thank you. So a lot of Frida's work are kind of like in that style of describing an event. And sometimes you'll see her do writings on the bottom. So a lot of them look like these tiny little paintings. And this was actually really cool too, that her mom actually got one commissioned after the bus accident. So there's a painting out there of a torn up bus with, you know, the description and the gratitude depicted on that. So I thought that was really cool too, learning about that.
That's really interesting. Across my research, I found, Frida didn't really gain the notoriety that she has today until after her death, like some famous artists have. And in the research, I heard that her work was so anti of the times, in those times.
What does anti of the times mean?
So like Diego would be painting these huge murals and things, and a lot of people would be trying to paint things that represent Mexican culture as a whole. And her work was very intimate, very personal, very small compared to what everybody was saying. And so in this documentary I saw or I heard that naturally her paintings progressed smaller and smaller to the point where she would just be painting on one 12 by 12 inch or even smaller little paintings that she would draw herself, or just some butterflies or something.
Actually, I don't know if you came across this in your research what I'm about to say, but I actually did find something about the canvas size. So apparently, while she was bedridden, her mother got an easel made that would sit on her bed and be at such an angle where she could work with it. And while she's bedridden, she makes smaller paintings. And then that painting that I'm talking to you about, the one with the two Fridas, that is a very large painting. And that was made maybe like, I might be wrong, but like 20 to 30 years maybe before her death. So I would call that very midlife, to be honest, though I don't know how many years she lived. So that's that. But she was told to make a painting that was almost life size because it was more like marketable. So I was wondering if you knew that too as you were speaking on the sizes.
No, what I got from that was that she just really didn't care. She painted big, she'll paint them small. At one point, we were like watching her like draw butterflies on her cast.
Yeah, I love that.
She just wanted to draw.
Yeah,
it was like her therapy, her safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she was like, "I need to make money because I'm being a burden to my family." Was her mindset, and then was like, "I need to go get money for this. What can I do? Oh, I can do paintings. So let me go see if I can make money with it."
Yeah. Sometimes her paintings are so cryptic.
Yeah, they absolutely are. They for sure are. And that's the thing too. Sorry to interrupt that. Sometimes I make art that has no meaning. Sometimes I get tattoos that have no meanings. Sometimes I don't like to learn about the meanings other people have on things, and I just like to make up meanings. So that's the thing about these paintings, though, is that she doesn't allow you to put your own spin on it. You can try to understand the meaning, and that is in a way you putting your own spin on it. But ultimately, she makes you understand her or try to understand her. And that, I think, is really powerful, too. And I think it makes people curious when they can't solve this puzzle. It's too cryptic. What does it mean? They look into her. And I think that's maybe another reason why she's as immortal as she is.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting thing because these so specific, the metaphors and imagery that she'll put in there, that it's really, really imperative that you know the context of her life because these paintings are her life. Yeah, word up. So Hailey's an artist and I'm a musician.
Tell me about the music.
Let me tell you about this music. All right. As soon as those credits start, the opening credits, and you hear that Mexican. Just the beautiful guitar.
I love the soundtrack.
And the vocals, and it's just, I am transported. Vamos.
Yes.
Ay, Dios mío.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And I think it's so cool that the vibe completely changed when they went to New York. Big band swing jazz. All of a sudden, like trumpets, but not Mexican trumpets, New York trumpets, doing bebop jazz and all these things. It was great. It was
there was
awesome.
also a visual transition of when they went to New York. Like all of a sudden we're seeing collage and like, I guess that's basically, it was like collage over this bustling scene. I felt like it really visually demonstrated the energy of a city versus where they came from.
Yeah, straight up. And there was a cool, I don't know if you noticed, there was like a cool little color palette change when they went to New York. It was a little bit more monotone. It was a little bit more grayscale.
Interesting. I don't recall that.
It wasn't as vibrant as Mexico.
Huh.
Yeah, it was a little more dull.
Which is where both of their hearts really are. It's where their passion is.
So speaking of like the transition from Mexico to New York, the transitions in this movie. Wow. There was some amazing. One of my favorites is on Frida's and Diego's wedding night when they're dancing in the middle of the room. It's a painting in the middle of a room and then real people dancing next to them, and slowly that starts slowly fading into actually them. And it just took me away.
Absolutely.
Oh,
those are my
goodness.
favorite parts of the whole film.
It was so crazy.
It's so crazy. And it really like you were literally just talking about Death of the Artist, which is something that I love to do. Recently though, like as Javi is aware, I've been obsessed with Melanie Martinez and learning about her. Now she's an artist that also makes you curious. But Frida,
back from the den.
so good. And I feel like in this film, they really blur that for you. They're saying the art is the artist and the artist is the art. With these transitions, there's no separation. This is Frida's wedding day. And then it faded into real life. She's standing next to Diego. This is her wedding day. There's no separation because she paints about her life. When
she gets into the bus accident and the doctor is operating on her, it's like stop motion animation or something. Like out of nowhere, I was blown away. Cool. So I think the thing everyone wants us to talk about is the relationship between Frida and Diego. In the movie, there's a part where Diego asks Frida to marry him for the first time. They have a whole discussion. He's incapable of monogamy. A doctor gave him a diagnosis of being physiologically unable to be monogamous.
I have unfit for monogamy is what I tried really hard to find a quote or something about the actual diagnosis that he got. I'm as far as I know, just in the brief research I did, it looks like it's from a letter, but I might be wrong. But yeah, that's apparently some doctor told Diego that he was unfit for monogamy, that he literally could not do it from a medical lens. That's crazy to me.
So there's a whole theme here that I saw, at least, about loyalty versus fidelity.
Oh, I have that. Okay, so I have that written down. I'm glad you brought it up. So the words that they were using in that conversation was, I said I could be true. There's 4 of them. I said I could be loyal. I did not say that I could practice fidelity. I did not say I could be faithful. And these things, they sound different, but we're splitting hairs if we're talking about faithful and loyalty. If we're talking about, I don't know, true infidelity. I don't know. It's just like, I get what he's saying, but I'm so confused that somebody that you like on Frida's level, like I think she's thinking, this isn't normal. This is not something he would do if he loved me. So if he sleeps with other people, it means he doesn't love me, I think is the mindset that she has going into it. So then she says, I want, she's basically what at the core of all these words that are different but similar is just, hey, don't cheat on me. And he's going, I can be true to you, but I can't be faithful. What the frick ever, when it comes to these splitting hairs things, like I just like at the root of all of these words, she's asking one question. And when he said yes to her. He said yes to her because he agreed to one of those words that isn't quite the same as the other one. But ultimately, he gives her the answer that that's not going to happen. So I'm confused why they both entered this relationship with, at least in the terms of the film. But and even here, it's so funny because we have to literally separate if we're talking about the film or their real lives when we're talking about this. In the film, they enter into that with that conversation, both of them thinking, I think, that conversation went how I wanted it to go. My wife understands that I can be true, but I can't be faithful. And she's going, my husband understands that he needs to change for me and he will be all of the things I asked him to be. And we are in agreement. And that is just absolutely not what happened. So I thought it was really interesting that you wanted to talk about those weird words they were talking about in that conversation.
Yeah, I think they are different words. I think loyalty is different from fidelity or infidelity.
Can you break it down for me then in your perception?
Yeah, they really were not clear about their boundaries.
No, absolutely not. They weren't,
He could sleep around and still be loyal to her.
That's how he perceives it.
Yeah, his heart still loves her and he'll respect her.
And he said a fuck is like a handshake to me. So even sex isn't in the same context for either of them. They view it both very differently.
I think she was like very free with having sex too.
But I think that, the way that he viewed sex was different because if it were completely the same, there would be less friction in that conversation about it.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't really believe it when he says it's just a handshake. Like,
you don't believe that when he says it?
Nah.
No?
I don't know. It's like
I do. I believe him when he said it. It's just, this is what it means to me. It means nothing. Like, like for him, like, because then also we understand this was a great conflict for them in the relationship was that he hooked up with her younger sister. And
that crossed every line.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
was crazy.
That feels obvious, right? It feels obvious to me. It feels obvious to you. But for him, it wasn't obvious. He was in that situation and he thought, this is, who knows what he thought, but I'm guessing that he thought it wasn't so serious because it doesn't, like, for him, it's like, I just gave her a handshake. Who would be upset about me shaking somebody's hand? That's what it means to him. So I feel like that actually does make sense when he communicates that is his context for what sex is to him.
Yeah, they really needed to clear up their boundaries. They could have reached some kind of compromise.
They thought they were on the same page.
Yeah, there's no way. Like he stated it very clearly. I can't be monogamous. I don't want to be monogamous. And she did not state very clearly, be monogamous for me.
Yeah.
She thought she could change him. She had a whole conversation. The ex-wife was like, you can't change him. And Frida was like, we'll see. She thought she could change his ways.
You're right.
Even though he said time and time again, and he proved time and time again that I cannot be monogamous. Like I am non-monogamous, not ethically non-monogamous, but that's what he was.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking maybe one of the reasons he couldn't be an ethical polyamorous practitioner is because in this mindset where he thinks that there's something medically wrong with him. I think that somebody who is under that kind of perception about themselves might lean into that persona, especially if a doctor said that, then he's like, oh, well, it's not me. So in that way he can take a lot of like impulsive, guilt-free action and then just be like, well, it's not me. It's this thing, and just use it as a crutch maybe in other conversations he has about boundaries and, breaking them.
Yeah. I also want to state that there seemed to be a bit of a double standard from both of them happening with regards to fidelity because I know we both laughed when this happened, but when she slept with Tartatsky, the Russian dude, and he's like, I can't believe you, Frida. You've broken my heart. Like, bro, what? This is after sleeping with her sister. Like, My brother in Christ,
Yeah.
please. Stupid, bro.
You're right. It is stupid. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt here and try to understand maybe if there's an alternative reason he said that. Maybe for him, it wasn't the sex. Maybe it was the person. Because I was thinking that, right? That guy she slept with, Trotsky, ended up leaving the safe space they had curated for him. And he died because of it.
Yeah.
Maybe the part of Diego knew that would happen, and that if Frida just like hadn't had done that, then this person wouldn't be put in a situation where they're no longer safe and could probably die.
Because of her action, this person is now in danger, and because of that, the whole political system that they both believe in and would die for is now in danger.
Is Frida a believer in what he believes?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
They were
get
both
that.
a part of the. I have it written down, but I think it's like the Mexican Communist Party.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Do you think that is maybe a reason that Diego said that?
Yeah, maybe so. It wouldn't make sense that it would be for
Just the
really
sex.
romantic
Yeah.
reasons, because they were broken up at that
But
point. And
also, let's say that I had this condition that Diego does believe he has. He believes that it's true. So he enters that situation with, I can't control myself. I'm rabid, basically. But you are this pure dove. For you to do this is different than if I were to do this. And that might have also had some weight in the sex aspect, just because of the context of their relationship up until this point. It was a lot more serious for Frida than it was for him. So for her to do it, it doesn't mean the same thing.
I just remembered that there was this quote that they said about how they would greet each other, and she would be, when he would come home from working on the big mule, she would say, my big king. And
My big king.
Yeah, and he would say to her, my beautiful dove. Or something like that.
That's probably where I got it from. You know, we did laugh because we were both like shocked that he would say that. But if you think about it and try to like take off the story of, you know, whatever you perceive it initially that made us think it was literally comical, and just reframe it, then all of a sudden it makes sense. And it is heartbreaking for him.
I understand why she would say something like this, or would do something like this, you know, after
Revenge.
You know,
Freedom.
She was like, I hope you get how it feels now, or something like that.
There you go.
She's very, you know, she was spiteful. She
called that a clap back.
Yeah, she clapped back for real. Not very gracious. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she got fire. She
does have fire.
Her high school boyfriend, after the bus accident, he was going to move. Mm-hmm. And she realized that he was going to move forever. She, instead of being like, no, or, oh, hug me or something, she literally just told him to get out before she finished drawing this butterfly on her cast.
Rude.
And I was like, wow.
I thought that was pretty immature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick. She's a Cancer sun sign. Cry baby. No wonder all her paintings are so depressing. No, I'm teasing. Love me Cancers. I love Cancers.
Yeah. But she, you know, that just goes to show like how hard of a shell she had to put up. She was hardened by the pain that she went through in her life. And it shows in her paintings, you know, and it shows in the accountings of her actions and her words to people and things. Very quick to push people away whenever they wrong her. Except Diego, she kept bringing him back into her life.
She pushed him away after the sister affair.
Yeah. Eventually, he just came back, and she kept accepting him.
Yeah.
All the way till the end of their lives.
Yeah.
Continuing on the double standard line of thought, she has a double standard. Like I said earlier, I understand because maybe she, you know, it's like payback, revenge. He did it, so it's okay if I do it.
Right.
When they were in New York, she was sleeping with that lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in the diner. She was touching her leg, and you know, they both had infidelous acts in their relationship.
Yeah, I think that she just thought that there was a certain point where it was fine if she did it too. She might have also done it for revenge and any other, you know, paintings that we can put to that action for sure. I think it was at that point. In my opinion, in her story, I think it was justified.
They both have a communication issue. If they both talked about it and they both just communicated that they want to sleep with other people, and they, you know, she did too. He did, obviously.
Yeah.
They could have reached some kind of compromise.
She didn't, I don't think. She wants to be monogamous because in her opinion, probably, that there is no other way to be. And if she does what he does, it means that there's no integrity in their connection. So for her, in her opinion, that's not what she wants. It's something that she succumbs to. And there's the difference there.
I feel that if she really knew about...
Yeah. And that's actually my note. Could they or Diego be polyamorous? And I entertained a yes in this context. Maybe if they knew about polyamory, maybe if they understood that it was possible to have a healthy and respectful and safe relationship where he could explore other partners. But if he doesn't know, he may be inclined to live in the idea or story that something is medically wrong with him, that he can't control and take impulsive and guilt-free action. If they were exposed to the idea of polyamory and understood that not just that it's possible, but that it's not a lesser relationship. It doesn't mean that they don't love each other. It doesn't mean they're not committed to each other. That they understood that these relationship types are equal, then they might perceive pursuing that connection differently. I think that because potentially they both have the mindset that like maybe there's some hatred in Diego where he's like, I can't do this thing. Why can't I do this? Why isn't it what I want? Like I'm such a clear animal. I'm hurting somebody I loved. And he actually later decides to divorce her. He divorced her after cheating on her because she wasn't going to do it. She was going to compromise with him and work through it regardless of what she thought or wanted. She was just hoping that he was happy. And with him, he was like, I'm an animal and can't do what she needs me to do. So I want her to be happy. So that's why I chose to divorce her. So I thought that was really interesting. But if they both came to an understanding that these relationships are equal, then they might have had a different approach to it. But that being said, I also entertained a no because it's not just knowing about the relationship type or knowing that it's similar or as healthy. It's also about being truthful and honest and raw and vulnerable and communicative, and that's scary to open up your heart to somebody and let them know the things that you think are stupid to talk about and say even just small things and to create that wave and that line of communication. So I was thinking no, because he doesn't respect boundaries and he lies. But then I was thinking, okay, so this person's withholding. There are relationships where people can have that type of communication. I think it's called don't ask, don't tell. That's basically what it is, where you just do what you want and your partner won't ask you about it. And that's it. Do I think that's healthy? No, in my opinion, it's not. But I also think that anybody could make something healthy. Like they go about it in their own way and it's good for them, then it's good for them. It's healthy for them. For me and my perception, how I view relationships and want my relationships to be, I want to be able to say what I want to and communicate how I want to and tell you everything that I want to tell you, and be able to have that space where I feel accepted and can accept. So that's something they could do, that don't ask, don't tell practice. But I still don't think that's a healthy practice. And then there's a quote from the movie where she says, Diego belongs to no one, only himself. And I just wanted to hone in on this polyamorous idea that I think we keep stumbling into together, is that no one owns anybody. And so I thought it was interesting, though, that she said he owns himself, because she's talking about that idea of ownership in terms of he's not mine. But she's right in saying he owns himself. And that is something we hear all the time, where people are their own people. They'll do what they want to do and everyone owns themselves. So it's kind of in the line of being a healthy statement and an unhealthy statement at the same time.
Yeah. She stumbled upon a really healthy line of thinking during an unhealthy thought.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's very insightful. Thank you.
I want to hear if you have any other observations that were tying into polyamorous themes.
They don't believe in marriage yet. They're getting married regardless. Okay. Weirdos.
Okay.
I don't get it, but all right.
Because for them, it both stands for something. Okay. Well, can you talk to me about that? Why would somebody do something they didn't believe in? They're adults. They are clearly adults who don't care about what other people think. So I don't think that the pressure of this comes from external pressures. I think it comes from internal pressures. That's my guess. So what do you think about that? Why would they do something they didn't believe in? But also I do have that one monologue queued up where she talks about the radicalism of that action, the good and the bad. And I actually found I entirely agreed with her statement.
I thought about that for a while, and honestly, it kind of reminds me of us.
Okay, well, tell me about it. What do you mean?
We don't believe in the institution of marriage or anything like that.
Okay, go into that though, because I know my beliefs and I know your beliefs, and we haven't necessarily talked about it in a while, and we've evolved since those conversations. So let's talk about it. What is the institution of marriage for you? What does that even mean when you say that to me?
Just the tradition of it,
the American tradition.
Not only the capitalist tradition of it, the history of it, but also the religious background and context that marriage comes from. I don't with it, but I with you. And to me, that seems like...
But I with you.
And to me, that seems like the deepest statement of commitment that you can give to someone that you want to be your nesting partner and you want to have a long-term committed relationship with.
Well, I think it's interesting how our connections fostered, though, because this is something, but what I mean by fostered is you and I have decided to get married, and in our context of how we understand marriage is the commitment that people make. When people, you see them deciding if they're making a mistake in movies or maybe like Love is Blind. I'm thinking of an example, the reality TV show, because they have up until that moment when they say I do to make up their mind or not about that decision, it seems, because then that's the point where they leave or not, and then the relationship's called off. What my point is that for some reason people think that the connection happens at that I do part, that's the scary part. That's not the scary part. The scary part, and we're in agreement, is the contract you're forced to sign to cement that. And we had an experience where a dear couple friend of ours, what I mean by that is they were in love and they had a falling out and they were not very kind to each other or each other's property. And that was the first time where Javi and I were like, maybe we should rethink this. If we have some type of legal contract to protect us, then, because I am of the belief that you can love someone and hate them just the same amount, because when you let people into your heart, they are the people who have the access to do the most damage. It's like inviting in a suicide bomber right into your cavity and exploding you from the inside out. Somebody that you don't care about is not going to be able to inflict the same kind of damage that a person you love can. So we rethought that, legal contract, and we're still teetering on it. Like if Javi were to be in the hospital, I have no way to go see him and to make the decisions that we maybe have talked about if he were in certain situations where I would have knowledge to how he wanted it handled or something like that, or I would have the funds or whatever I would need as a spouse to be able to take care of him. So we are rethinking that, but we understand too that marriage isn't the way that we perceived it to be growing up. We had understandings about how it was, and we're going to plug a book right now. It's called Sex at Dawn: How We Mate, Why We Stray, and What It Means for Modern Relationships. And I did date somebody who found some of the stuff to be not so factual. So just going to say that too. But regardless of what was entirely true and what was entirely false, what it left me with was empowerment and the decisions that I was coming to in my life about why I became polyamorous and why it was right for me and how I wasn't crazy and that other people were doing this too. And not only were other people doing it too, but it was natural, which is what I always suspected. And I did want to talk to you too about what your ideas were about marriage before and after polyamory, because I know mine definitely shifted. Before, I met you. Right before I met you, you know, a couple of years prior to meeting you, my mindset completely changed. And when I viewed marriage from the monogamous lens, I viewed it as a trap. And I viewed it as, you know, like what you're talking about, like this highly religious ceremony that was just a step in my life that I needed to take. Like for some reason, my life would be unfulfilled. And I know consciously that's not true, but that's not something I really know. It's not something I would feel in my life. I would feel later in life if I were to not have that aspect of my life fulfilled, there's something wrong. There's something not right here. And I'm sure a lot of people have to overcome that societal conditioning about what marriage is. So that's how it was for me. And then I read Sex at Dawn, and I was already, you know, understanding about polyamory, and I introduced it to my partner before I met you from college, and learned a lot about it. And I realized, okay, like this is the route. And then I went into it with you thinking I don't even know if I finished my point earlier, was that in movies and in shows like Love is Blind, they think that it's the actual I do, that's the problem. That's not the problem. That's the fun part, you know, and people are putting too much weight on that when it's actually the heavy part is when you sign this contract. So that's what we took out of it, was the commitment that we could make to each other, while simultaneously by not pursuing that contract, we granted each other freedom. But I also think that does come, for me, I realized lately that it's come out of a place of fear of losing my freedom by signing that contract. And that contract is what makes me fearful, not the commitment that I could make to you and how I would fulfill that in my life as best I could, until maybe one day I no longer could. And I really loved that we granted each other that freedom, whether it was through liberation or through fear. I think that it's really safe and I really like it. And I think that it just really hits on the core of what a partnership is.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love you so much.
I love you so much. That's just our story, babe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so many people don't know most married people are actually non-monogamous because they're in a three-way relationship with their partner in the government.
You slay me. I was like, what statistic is this?
I was totally of the mindset of the relationship escalator as well.
What's the relationship escalator, Javi?
The relationship escalator is, you know, you meet a person, take them out, the guy gets on the one knee.
All on the first date.
Yeah. On the third day, you have sex. And then you get married, and then you have kids, and you buy, you know, you
step
do the whole
one, step two, step three of how a relationship should be.
That would be on my mind when I was younger. Do I want to get married? I guess I got to, you know.
If I gotta.
If I had to get married, I guess I could settle with this person. I'm not happy about it, but it's just what
choice do I have?
There's no other way to be, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So thanks for showing me that's not the only way.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
You met me and your world just opened right up.
Rocked it up. Yeah. It's awesome. Before we give our answer to if these people should just be poly or not, what are some of your favorite moments? Quotes, favorite transitions, favorite scenes?
So my favorite quote is the monologue from the wedding reception.
I don't believe in marriage. No, I really don't. Let me be clear about that. I think at worst it's a hostile political act, a way for small-minded men to keep women in the house and out of the way, wrapped up in the guise of tradition and conservative religious nonsense. At best, it's a happy delusion. It's two people who truly love each other and have no idea how truly miserable they're about to make each other. But when two people know that and they decide with eyes wide open to face each other and get married anyway, then I don't think it's conservative or delusional. I think it's radical and courageous and very romantic. To Diego and Frida.
Diego and Frida.
Cheers.
Cheers. That's my favorite quote. And I found that I agreed with everything that she said.
My favorite quote, it might have not have actually been in the movie itself. I think maybe I just came across this in my research. So the quote is, Viva la vida. which means long live life. And her last painting, Frida Kahlo's last painting, was a still life of watermelons sliced up.
Really?
Yeah, just a simple little watermelon sliced up. And she died, right? And friends of Diego said that he looked like a soul cut in half.
Oh.
He said, Diego stated that he truly understood the power of her love only after her death.
Oh my God.
And 3 years later, before Diego died, he died 3 years later.
No kidding.
Yeah, so Diego died 3 years later, and before he died, his last painting was a still life of cut watermelons.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh.
What does it mean?
Yeah, but I just thought that was beautiful and like a testament to, even though through the cheating and all these things, they still really loved each other.
Yeah,
they truly felt a passion for each other, and I think they just really understood each other.
Oh, I got a quote for you. Diego Rivera said, "Frida was the one great fact of my life." I don't even know what it means, but I love it.
Yeah,
but it sounds cold. That's how the person described it.
She was the only true thing in his life.
And then Frida said, "There were two great accidents in my life.
Oh my!
The bus and you."
Jeez.
Soulmates
for real. Can I tell you my favorite scene?
Yeah, I was just literally about to do the same
maybe
thing.
we have the same favorite scene.
Okay. Wait. 3, 2, 1. Hospital
Tango.
animation. Oh, Tango was my number 2, but I wanted to talk about the hospital animation.
Yeah.
So Javi brought this up earlier, but it's the animation that is right after the beautiful bus scene. You know, can we just talk about that contrast?
The slow motion of the glass breaking, the bus cracking in half.
The bird flying into the air. The gold flakes flying through the air.
The last image before the hospital where she's laying in the rubble, blood and gold glitter over her.
You know, it's very interesting to me that when you were describing her ailments, you didn't talk about the pipe that went right through her pussy. So that's insane to me to think about that. But yeah, and also it's like there's this one scene of this one moment where this man falls to the floor on this wood breaking, and and then the last scene is Frida lying down covered in glitter, and you see that impalement. But for some reason, for me personally, watching that man get folded up like a taco by some wood made me feel closer to what pain feels like visually for me to understand it versus the impaling. And that just might be because I can relate to falling to the ground. I can't relate to getting stabbed. But what do you think about that, and how did it make you feel? Because I'm thinking about the contrast of that impact on her life, you know, the actual tragedy of the situation versus how beautiful it was. It was such a beautiful scene.
I think slowing it down into the slow motion and showing every little millisecond did something that showing it in real time couldn't have. You really sit with it for a minute. You understand that, oh, this is a big deal. It's not just like, this is a movie about Frida, but you don't think about all the 100 other people in this bus accident.
Was it 100 people?
Yeah,
it looked very small to me. In the film, it looked like there was like 7 people present.
What I remember reading is that it was a big accident and dozens of people got injured and killed.
Yikes.
Yeah. It was in the newspapers in Mexico. But yeah, and then, the image of her laying there in the rubble and then going into the stop motion animation at the hospital.
Yes. So the animation, for me, the style of this, obviously it's so out of place. You don't see it again at any point. You see cool animation like the transitions we were talking about, but you don't see anything like, you're right, it kind of looks like claymation or some type of stop motion visual. The way that I feel this is best visually described is a cross between Tim Burton and Mexican sugar skulls for Dia de los Muertos. So I definitely saw that in the skeletons, you know, but the fact that there are even skeletons, it reminded me a lot of Corpse Bride, you know, like the jazzy guy in the underworld, I guess is what it is. And so it's like that mixed with sugar skulls. So I thought that was really interesting because it did seem entirely connected. You're seeing, you know, the Mexican themes come through even in that visualization. So, you know, that is my favorite scene. But actually, as we're talking about the bus scene, I'm like, am I changing my favorite scene? But I think I just didn't want to pick it because it's so tragic. But the animation is definitely what sticks out when I think about this film and think back on it. I think about that scene. So I thought about it. I just tried to analyze it a little bit. And I think that the visual symbols of that's what you're seeing is like, obviously, like you're seeing a spine, you know, being kind of like carried through on a cart. I think that, you know, when you try to break down, that's just one visual symbol that I didn't necessarily give any thought to this moment prior to this moment. But when you think about why is a spine being carried on a tray, just think about the kind of damage that somebody's going through, where they have literal integral parts of them being rolled around a hospital, like the kind of broken piece feeling that is being communicated even in that just one symbol. So I think there are symbols like that all throughout the animation that you could, if you thought about it a little bit more, or just like tried to understand the interpretation, you come to your own meaning, or hopefully you'll come to the truth of what it means. Yeah.
I like her paintings.
Exactly. So my interpretation of this scene is that this is what's happening in her mind whenever she's on whatever pain medicine they're giving her after the accident. So, and the reason why I think that is because obviously it's like a surreal depiction of reality, which is the entire theme of her work. But also what happens is, as I believe and perceive her medication to be wearing off, the doctor's voice go from when she pushed her in through places, you know, like they return to reality. The skulls and the skeletons that she's seeing turn into the doctor and her sister consulting about her medical condition and hoping that she'll even live through it. So, and I think that also indicates like they're not sure she'll live through it. And we know that this was a violent reaction for her body to deal with. We know that it consisted of injuries. So we can come to understand visually through that auditorily because the doctor said it, not necessarily something we saw, but he commented on her that she might die. So we can understand that she's in a lot of pain as we're seeing this animation become reality. And then they say, well, let's hope she lives first. And then all of a sudden we see this horror scream out of Frida where it zooms in, and it was very much like a horror movie, which is why I also think that maybe the animation was more of like a Tim Burton style. It was dark. It was a little scary. It was out of place. And then she wakes up and screams, and then the doctor injects her with some type of clear liquid. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, scene black. So that's what I thought it was, especially because that's such a theme throughout her work and throughout the whole movie is the pain, the suffering. So that's my perception of what this scene means.
That's a great interpretation. That the sudden shift in style is because we're seeing it through her eyes. And she sees the world very differently from everyone else.
Well, also I think because her vision's altered. You know, her mind's altered from the medication.
Yeah. Man, they really thought it through with this one.
Yeah. So that's my favorite scene.
My favorite scene was the tango.
The tango, which was my two. So we are on the same wavelength there.
Even when I first watched this film, the tango was my favorite scene.
It's so, okay, one, funny because of how they got there. And two, just like, so sexy.
Oh,
so
steam.
Sexy.
They are at some party with all the communist people, and they're dancing and they're drinking and being loud, and everybody is like finely dressed and also not finely dressed at the same time. And Diego and Antonio Banderas come in there, and they have this whole huge discussion, this argument, political argument. And Diego just pulls out a whole gun and shoots it blank at this
Toxic.
dude. Like, red flag.
Red flag.
And he shoots the sonograph that's playing the music.
Rude.
And they start laughing with each other, and then they start, they're gonna fight again, and all of a sudden one of the ladies, she puts a big old bottle of what I assume is like tequila or something, just straight tequila or moonshine or something, and
Something
she's like,
strong.
yeah, very strong, a clear liquid. We don't mess with the clear alcohols. No, that's like medicine alcohol. And she was like, whoever can drink the most of this gets to dance with me.
How bold.
I know. And these two straight cis men are looking at each other. I was like, we're gonna get the
whole room
lady.
is watching. The lady is watching.
They gotta do it. So Antonio takes a pretty weak, a little swig. Diego tries his best, gets a little bit more, and then here comes Frida. She takes a
No one is expecting it.
Jaws on the floor. She
They
takes the
said a
whole
woman
thing.
cannot.
Boom, puts it on the table, takes her by the arm, and they have a dance, a tango, amazing. And the band is playing, and actually
It was very sexy.
Yeah, one thing that I hate about having musicians on screen is that most of the time the music will
It doesn't
not
align.
sync up at
Oh,
all.
I bet that gets on
But
your
I was
nerves.
watching their fingers. It
Were they
synced up.
aligning?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
look
was
at
great.
that. That must have been very
Extra detail that
like fulfilling for
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
satisfying.
anytime a movie takes the time to get that synced up, because it's hard to do. You know?
I can imagine.
But they got it right, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And that dance was amazing and
So amazing.
steamy at the same time. The
I can't
lighting
imagine
was perfect.
dancing with someone like that. They weren't just like, it was literally foreplay. You
Yeah.
know, like they were bending in certain places where their chests were exposed, and then you got one girl just dancing down the middle of the cleavage very slowly. My fingers tingling as I'm mimicking the motion with my hand.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of eroticism in the gestures that they were specifically doing, which makes me wonder, is that normal? Is that normal for that kind of dancing, maybe in this kind of country at this kind of time? What do you think? Or was that something that was charged because we understand Frida's bisexual? Who knows about the person that she was dancing with? But for her, it probably was an erotic situation. Do you think that it's more erotic because it was Frida and that girl, or that was just kind of normal? I'm thinking it wasn't normal because what Frida did wasn't normal.
Yeah, it definitely. I don't think at
You don't
all
think
it
that?
was normal.
Yeah, okay.
No way. It's
Makes
the,
me
it's
feel
the
better
50s in
because
Mexico.
I'm not doing that on the dance floor. Let me tell you.
Latinos in the 40s or 50s doing no way, man.
Okay.
No, that's not happening.
All right, these fiery women. Okay, so that's the
it's
context
a very
for me.
progressive party and everyone's drunk and she
Yeah,
just did
okay.
something really badass.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She drank a lot of that, like half of it.
Yeah.
Javi was eyes wide open there.
I take one shot and I'm throwing up after that. No way.
Bro.
But she just built different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I looked into Frida's unibrow. I was like, does it impact her life? Like, what was expected of a woman at this time? Was this an inappropriate thing? Because I think most women these days, or people who subscribe to a female identity, would be upset to have a unibrow and would be extra mindful if they did. So I was wondering if her unibrow impacted her life. And I think that she actually loved her eyebrows, and she did apparently wrote it eyebrows. She didn't say eyebrow. Would you say eyebrows or eyebrow if you had a unibrow?
Anthony Davis, famous basketball player, calls himself the Brow.
So some people do and some people don't, is what I'm hearing. So she said, I love my eyebrows and my eyes especially. So I think that's interesting, but I don't think that for her, it was part of her identity in terms of her defiance and defying cultural norms and expectations and gender roles. I think we see that a lot in her story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
You gotta either shave it or you gotta own that thing.
That's what she owned it.
Yeah, for real. But I was also thinking you live yourself, your life as authentically as possible, just like she did. You're very honest about just living your truth. And I see that very, very cool.
Based on what Javi said, guess my zodiac.
Ooh.
You'll be able to if you know.
We'll give you a shout out if you can guess her zodiac sign correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, leave us a review with what you think both our signs are. The music, Elliot Goldenthal, who who he actually has won some awards before, but he clearly understood that, yeah, Mexico, we need a Mexico vibe. New York, we need a New York vibe. And we need to pick some good ass songs. Like Yo Soy La Llorona.
La Llorona. I really love Mexican music. I did notice a pattern of La Llorona being like a big theme in a lot of songs. And there was this one movie that came out that was about a girl who kind of lost her heritage living in America, and which I actually I personally relate to. I think I've discussed it with a lot of Hispanic people, and probably a lot of people can relate to their family, like their mother, their dad, maybe their grandparents coming from a different place, and they didn't grow up the same as those people. You know, they feel they don't really have a foot anywhere.
There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Because you're not in that environment.
Yes.
You're like an outsider in your home.
Yeah, in your heritage, in your culture. And then therefore you're kind of just this like cultural orphan. And it's weird how you can feel like an orphan amongst your family. So with this character in particular that I did see myself in, she went to Mexico to go discover this like creepy little forest, and, you know, ended up getting possessed by a demon, and an older woman had to, it was like, she was called a bruja, and she was the only person who knew how to get rid of an infestation like that. And there's a song in there called La Llorona that I listened to on the soundtrack, and I was just kind of like, when you go and you search La Llorona, it's so present. And there was actually even a horror movie that came out.
I was just about to say, like, I wonder if that, like, does that have something to do with that kind of history? It
does. And so I actually dug into it just a little bit, and apparently La Llorona is a story you might have been exposed to in your life before. So I actually was exposed to this story.
Me?
Yeah, even you. So I was exposed to the same story watching the first episode of Supernatural, Sam and Dean all the way. But
Team Jacob.
Shut up. We'll get into that, though. We will get into it. Don't you wait a second. There was an episode about a woman in white who was kind of young, standing at the edge of the road and asking people for rides and then killing them. So La Llorona, that's the story, though, is that it was prevalent even on this one American TV show. So that's the story, ultimately, is that it's a mother who drowns her children, which is, I don't know if I mentioned that's what happened in the Supernatural show too. That's typically how it seems to go, is like she lost her children. She drowned them because she was abandoned, or, you know, her husband left for some reason. And then she shortly dies after that. And God has condemned her to walk the earth to search and find her children so that she can be granted access into heaven. So sometimes, apparently, like according to the story that I found, was that she would lure children and try to pass those dead children off after she killed them as her dead children. Isn't that wild?
It's twisted.
So yeah, that was that story, but there's always like different variations of it, just kind of like there are different variations of any, you know, story, but apparently this has been around for a very, very long time and is depicted in a lot of different cultures. So I'm, you know, Javi's much more fluent in Spanish than I am. So sí. I was wondering if you knew what La Llorona meant.
The crier.
The crier. Okay. So without, you know, learning about it, I thought it just meant the sad one or the sad woman. And I felt like that was, you know, a strong understanding.
If she's the crier, I assume she's
the sad one. Yeah, it's
like
a connection that I could have made. But when I actually researched it, it means the weeping woman.
Yeah, la, you know, you assume it's a female that's a crier. So the female crier, weeping woman.
The female crier. Yeah. But yeah,
I'm doing a very literal translation, but yeah, it's like the weeping woman, you can make that. So.
Espanol.
Yeah. Cool. Let me see if I have.
I love that song, by the way. It's my favorite in the whole soundtrack. And that's what I like too. I was working at Chipotle one of the times where I re-exposed myself to this film, and she says, "Yo soy como el chile verde, llorona picante." Y pero sabroso. Maybe just pero sabroso. Yeah. Very good.
Mi gente!
But yeah, maybe you can help me translate that. But it means like, I am like the green chili verde sauce. I was thinking that's the sauce from Chipotle. It's the medium.
Yeah.
And spicy, but good tasting or savory.
Yeah, spicy and sweet. Sweet and spicy.
Sweet and spicy. Got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. I especially love it when the older woman sings it in the bar scene. She just a lot of echoey power.
Oh, can we talk about the dad really quick again? Like, I know I mentioned it earlier, but he was just such a strong support for her. Like, he taught her how to play sports, even though just exercise, general exercise in Mexico was seen as, quote, unsuitable for girls.
Oh, yikes.
Like, no physical exercise was really encouraged by
walking.
Yeah, nothing, you know? So he encouraged her to learn how to wrestle and all these things and play soccer and all this stuff. Like, he really wanted to raise a really strong woman. He didn't even care that I was a woman. He really wanted a strong person, a strong child, because he saw that, I'm assuming here, but he saw, you know, like, she was close to death. She had polio and all these things, and at a very young age. So he was like, "Not my daughter. She's going to rise above, and she's going to be strong." And I think without that dad in her life, I don't think there would have been a Frida. You know, she really, because
she would have been a little different. I think she still would have been defiant. Apparently, that defiant stare was coming out even in her toddler years.
Maybe so.
Yeah, her eyes just look the same, and people keep talking about the defiance of the gaze, which is maybe for more empathetic people who can sense more energies. But I'm like, people saw something, you know.
Yeah, there's something, you know. There's that whole discussion about
nature versus nurture.
You read my mind. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Do you know what benson means?
Benson? No, that's like a very Mexican term. It's not really such as just like a general Latino slang.
So my understanding when I watched it was that it meant like fat ass or something. Because when he took that insult from her, because the way she said it, she goes, "Just trying to keep you honest, benson." Like, it's like, she's not saying sweetheart. She's not saying my friend. Yeah. So he turns to the person who was present with him, and he goes something about his weight. He goes like, do I look that big to you, or do I look to you, you know? So she was clearly talking about his weight. It actually apparently means pot-bellied. And I looked up some pictures of him. My lord.
He was like huge, and she was so tiny.
She was so tiny, like a little dove.
Like,
just
literally,
like
at some points in her life, she would be 90 pounds.
Oh.
And she was so short. She was shorter than you.
How short was she?
She was like, man.
I'm 5'2".
She was like 5.
Oh.
Straight up. She was tiny. And he was like this like Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal kind of dude. Like 7 or 6 feet tall, 300 pounds. Like, they look like an odd couple.
And so the lion fell in love with the lamb.
Wow. Thank you. One of my favorite moments in the film is when, after she gets into the bus accident and she's painting her sister, and they're in the little blue house garden, and her mom and dad are walking to her, and she's like, "Stop, hold on a second. I got a surprise for you." And she gets up and she starts stumbling over to them, and they want to help her, but her sister stops them, and she makes like 15 steps to her, and she finally gets all the way to hug them. Oh my God, I wanted to cry. Oh, it was so beautiful. It was, because of that, it wasn't like a quick like 1 minute montage and then boom, we're out of it. This was like 15 minutes of the film that she had between the bus accident and she could walk again. Like, it was a long time. It felt cathartic for me, you know. And that was just one of the earliest instances of some kind of medical pain or accident that she had in her life.
I didn't think about that.
The rest of the film was just tacked on more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
But like that one really, I think it was very effective in showing, yes, when we show you in the future all this other crap, remember this first scene. Like this is one small example of what she's about to face. And all those 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it was was so much.
It was.
It was that, try that 300 more times in her life.
I really thought it was interesting in Frida's paintings that you'll often see her with a depiction of her spinal cord as like a broken column.
Do you remember that scene where they're in a bar and they just start like a fight?
Yeah.
Like they just start a fight. And then it's so funny. Diego's fighting that person and Frida just like hits someone over the head with a bottle and the band just looks at each other like, all right, let's rock. And then everyone's just fighting and the band's like, all right, perfect time to play some music.
They want to get people riled up.
Oh man, I hope I get the chance to do that one.
You want to rile people up in a bar fight?
While they're already fighting, I might as well give them a background music. I think that'd be...
Dun, 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 dun.
I just want something to break.
What is that?
Break stuff, Limp Bizkit.
I don't know this.
Oh my goodness.
I'm uncultured.
Yikes.
Oh, he said yikes.
That's all my notes. Well, you got any more notes?
Let me see. My last note. Diego had 4 wives. Fun fact.
Huh.
Yeah, 4. One of them is not what you think. This shocked me earlier. And I know it maybe shouldn't have, but I'm trying to view it through the monogamous lens of their experience, not my experience in this instance in particular. So Frida is the 3rd wife. In the film, there were only 2, Guadalupe and Frida. His first wife was Angelina Beloff, and they were married from 1911 to 1921, so like 10 years. And then in 1922, a year after his divorce, he's married to his second wife, Guadalupe Marin. And then in 1928, they get divorced, Guadalupe and him. In 1940, so what is that, like a good 12 years later?
Years?
11 years.
Wait, you said 28?
1928 to 1940.
12 years, sorry.
12 years. He marries Frida Kahlo, and Frida dies in 1954.
At the age of 47.
At the age of, for the ripe age. Oh, 47. Oh, honey. Yikes.
At the age of 47.
That is too young. Only the good. Okay, well, anyway, she died in 1954, and his 4th wife and him were married, Emma Hurtado, in 1955. A year after, with all the stuff we hear about Frida. And you want to hear something else he said about Frida? If I ever loved a woman, the more I loved her, the more I wanted to hurt her. Frida was only the most obvious victim of this disgusting trait.
Man, some of the things that I hear from this guy, it's like...
He seems really pompous in his quotes, doesn't he? That's just me. That's just my opinion. But I just I get a little ruffled just listening to him from the tone I'm reading him in. He must have been a difficult person to talk to. It's just
there's some things that I see so negatively, and some things that I can understand. He feels like it's impossible to be monogamous. I had difficulty being that, but then he says things
I didn't think it was real. I was like, this isn't making sense to me. When I was looking at it as like a teenager, I was like, people keep divorcing. Like this just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like this is authentic. I was very cynical about it.
Yeah. But it's some things that saying that people he loves are just victims waiting to be slaughtered or something. You know, it's
In
like
that last quote.
yeah, it's like.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is he describing actually how he feels, or is he describing?
Is he like leading into
exactly?
the thing that you were
leaning
talking
into
about?
it. You know, he's like, I'm an animal. You know, I can't believe the pain I'm inflicting on people, and you know, she's just like a victim of this disgusting trait that I have. But also, like, you know, why is it so hard for him to not do it? You know, and we both acknowledge that there is a natural aspect to polyamory, that it's people aren't lying anymore about what they want or what they need. What was he lying because it was wrong, or was he lying because he prefers to lie? And those are just very different questions that we don't know the answer to, even just based off this one real life quote. You know, we have these two interpretations to pull from, and we just have to choose which one we think is the one that makes the most sense.
I want to say that he prefers to lie because he likes it or something, or he gets like pleasure from it.
I don't perceive it that way. But I like that we're both perceiving it differently, because that's exactly how, like, it's like it's interpreting, you know, what we perceive as fact, because this is a real life story.
Yeah, we're getting secondhand accounts, you know, like, and it, you know, it seems from the research we've done that it seems pretty accurate, but it's like a game of telephone. This is a biopic. You know, if it was a fictional story, we'd have the facts straight up.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah.
Just to reiterate what I was saying earlier, that he was saying that he feels like he's non-monogamous, and she is okay being non-monogamous at times when she feels it's justified. It would be so justified if they just communicated that that's not, monogamy is not what they feel that they want to do in their lives, and they can still be loyal without having fidelity, without just having to have romance with just each other. They're both very romantic people.
Yeah,
they have
sensual.
They have that inside them, you know.
Yeah.
Before they met each other, especially in my research, I saw that Frida was going around and she was having a fun time with a lot of people. And her high school boyfriend, the one that we saw like move away in the story, he got mad at her for it, and she wrote him a letter that I live my life and I love a lot of people, but I love you the most, and all these things, and you know, trying to make him feel better for his jealousy and all these things. So, you know, she's no stranger to that kind of thing that we saw Diego doing in the movie. Like she was doing that at a younger age. What Diego was doing all the way till, you know, all of his life, we can assume. Because they go into the institution of marriage together, Frida has the line of thinking that because we're married now, we can't fool around like that. We have to be this certain way. And there's a block there from where some kind of upbringing or her environment or what she thinks love is supposed to look like that blocks her from wanting that non-monogamy as well. Or
just getting peace in her relationship.
And, you know, they couldn't communicate those boundaries clearly enough. Maybe because they didn't have the right terminology for it. But if they had communicated like Diego communicated, he said, "Look, I'm not monogamous.
He said,
I'm sick.
I'm sick.
I'm sick. I'm a little beast. I'm sick. I can't be monogamous. The doctor told me so. That's my prescription." And Frida's like, "Well, I can change you."
I kind of view his behavior as addiction. You know, that's the kind of monster it's reminding me of. I do think that he's leaning into that diagnosis. Like he thinks that it's something he can't control and therefore it is.
Maybe so.
So could a person even be polyamorous with that kind of mindset if they think that they're sick in this way? And maybe they are. You know, I was trying to look up like what kind of medical diagnosis this could even be. And there were some like, you know, first answer kind of things. You know, this might be misguided answers. There's literally apparently a disorder called compulsive cheating disorder.
Stop it.
That's what Google said. Our Lord and Savior Google said that to me. It told me the meaning of life, and then it said the compulsive cheating disorder is a thing. So yeah, that was one that it said. Who knows what that even means? And then psychopathy. I'm sure narcissism could be something. High testosterone levels.
What?
That's what it said. That's what Google said, I swear. Depression, anxiety,
all
PTSD.
You Andrew Tate fans.
Attachment issues, kind of like how we talked about in Polysecure. And then I wrote chronically horny.
Okay.
Which, don't we all just got a smidge of the old HC?
Yeah.
Wait, wow. CH. The old CH.
The old cha-cha-cha.
So yeah, like who knows, if he had a real disorder, maybe he could, and maybe there are people out there actually getting diagnosed with that kind of ailment. That's a bummer. So yeah, could a person who this is their reality, this is what they perceive their situation to be on a medical level, could even commit to that kind of situation, or would they just always feel like that situation, regardless of whether I'm allowed to do it, as long as I talk about it, is even a safe place, even still after that diagnosis?
I wonder if he would have been a little bit better if he would have been given a little bit longer of a leash. Like they would have talked about the boundaries and things, and maybe Frida would have been like, okay, you can sleep with people. We both can sleep with people.
Do you think Frida would feel better if she knew? Because there's still that mentality of this is not a healthy, normal relationship. This doesn't exist. But do you think that if she was of the mindset that this is like, oh, this is fine.
Maybe so. Yeah, I think he would still have to change a little bit because if she needed that communication, then he would have to be okay with communicating that and being honest. Which at one point she smells the other lady on him, and she was like, "Oh, you were with that, you were cheating and all this stuff." When she finds out, he's like, "Okay, yes, I was." So maybe there is a little bit in him that if given the safe enough environment
to speak on it,
that he might, he might be brutally honest.
He probably enjoyed being able to be honest. I don't think, just based on that interaction you're talking about.
He might have to have been lying as like a self-defense mechanism.
Or to protect the feelings of somebody he cares about.
Yeah, I understand that, because it's like, in monogamous relationships, I can't even tell somebody that I think that person is cute or anything.
Yeah, I would actually find myself resenting my partners for just being my partner, because I felt trapped in certain situations where I wasn't able to fully express myself authentically in that moment when I was attracted to somebody or wanted to flirt with somebody. I felt there was something morally wrong that I was doing, and it needed not only to be kept from my partner, but to hide it from myself and pretend like it wasn't even there.
Yeah, straight up. It's like, I was raised like Roman Catholic and all this stuff. And it's like, you taught a lot of shame and stuff. So it's like you feel you have those feelings for somebody else while you're in a monogamous relationship, and you just feel ashamed. And it's like, you got to lie about it because you can't let anybody know. And, maybe not so much for yourself because you live your life pretty authentically and honestly.
Oh, I try.
Or, most of your life you've been like that. But, I haven't been like that most of my life.
I don't like to lie.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah. I've definitely gotten like 3,000% better about that. But I used to lie all the time, and I get it because it's like that's the start of it, having to lie in a monogamous relationship. And then you just find yourself lying all the time. Like, with friends or family or whatever, gotta lie to my family that I'm not religious or anything, or then you lie to your friends telling, exaggerating a story to make it funny or whatever.
I definitely am guilty of that.
Yeah, you lie in business and in your workspace just to not disgruntle your coworker because you gotta make some money, and it just goes on and on and on. And you just lie all the time. So I can't imagine being in 1930s, 40s Mexico in a conservative environment where you got to be a certain kind of way. But that's a reason, not an excuse. So I still think Diego is not a good character as a person. his circumstances weren't the best, but a lot of people's circumstances were probably the same, and and there were better people in that same environment, like Frida's dad, who doesn't seem like a liar to me and seemed like a pretty honest man who lived his life well, and put good karma out there in the world. Yeah.
Okay, so drum roll. Should they just be poly?
I think yes.
Okay, tell me about it.
Yeah, I think these people should have at least given it a shot. If they read a book or something. There were no books back then about polyamory.
No.
If someone exposed them to the idea, that I'm so sure they would have been on board.
They're weird. Like what I wanted to say earlier about sex at dawn was something that really opened my eyes for what marriage could be. Is there apparently parts of the world where to be married to somebody, all you need is to move your place of sleeping to be next to theirs. And all of a sudden you are now married. That could happen in an evening. I guess signing a marriage contract could, but it's definitely a lot easier to just move your mattress. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we technically have that here, common law
marriage. Yeah, we looked into that. That's not available in every state. That's available in I might be don't quote me, but I think it was 15 states. So it's not as common as you'd think. So that changed to me what marriage is, and what its potential. And that opened my eyes a little bit to the possibilities. There's nothing to open their mind. They just have the people and the experiences and the literature available. And I'm sure they
were radicals, If anybody would have access to that kind of information,
you think so?
It would have been them.
Why didn't they then? Do you think that it's something that one evening they were like, so I heard about this cool jazzy thing in New York called polyamory. And I was just thinking, you cheat on me a lot. Maybe we should. And then they talked about it and we're like, nah. What do you think? Do you because you think they're so radical, so new age that this is an idea potentially they might even be exposed to? Why would they be exposed to it and then not choose it? I can think of reasons. I definitely can think of reasons.
I could think of they just were, because they are open-minded, but they're so stuck in their ways too.
Exactly.
They're very stubborn people.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Very, very fiercely opinionated people.
Mm-hmm. Hard-headed.
Yeah, absolutely. So you think that equipped with the right information in a safe space to pursue it, that they could do it and there would be no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I would hope so, at least. That's the optimist in me.
In this ideal situation you're talking about, where they're exposed to the right information, that right information would be, for me too, what is actually his medical ailment? Is this real, or is this something that is just something someone's saying to describe something that feels like they have no control over?
I never really believed that it was like a medical condition. I think it was just something of the times. It's like, this doctor has never seen polyamory or some kind of non-monogamy for us. Like, oh man, you can't sleep with just one woman for the rest of your life. Wow, I need to give you a medical diagnosis. You are incapable of monogamy.
Was this a common diagnosis doctors were handing out? Or was this just something that he was at a party once and his doctor friend said, lol, you...
Dude, bro, let me tell you something, dude. I see a lot of students. Hell my God. You, though, bruh, of all the people that went into my office, dog, I swear to God.
Stop. Yeah.
No cap, bro. No cap.
So it's like, is he and that's what's something though, is that the only thing I could find about this medical diagnosis was in a letter that Frida was writing a friend, and he wrote back saying that, he's not really a monogamous person. Is that the quote? Because when I did my hour of research, I couldn't find it, so it must not exist. But that's my question though, is that, was he at a party and someone said that offhandedly and he just quotes this person, or is this something that he was in a doctor's office with his bare ass cheeks on that medical table and the doctor said, I'm sorry to tell you that
Why did his cheeks didn't be out?
because you wear that paper robe. And your butt is on the table. What do you mean?
Why does he need to get dressed down for that?
Maybe he was doing his physical. I don't know.
It's like, oh yeah, so your knee doesn't bounce. Oh, I think you're unfair.
Stop it. People get undressed for their physicals. Older men need prostate exams. There's plenty of reasons that his bare ass cheeks could be on the table. Why are you laughing? This will be you. This will be you with your prostate.
My man's getting a prostate exam and the doctor's wiggling his finger and he's like, it seems like you're unfit for monogamy.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's also my question. There's no way that no way, but it feels unlikely that was a situation that happened. Is my point. Like was he in a doctor's office or was he at a party and some guy just said that to him?
Maybe, I think maybe this dude, Diego, was like talking with the doctor and the doctor was like
just chatting.
Just in the office, and just like they were just chatting and
wasn't even there.
He
for
was talking about like his history and it's like, have you had any sexual history in the past, blah blah blah, or it's like, yeah, and it's like, well, like these 30 women. And it's like 30 women. Oh man, how often you just like, oh, my life, and he's got his life story or whatever, and like, he gets some history and it's like, well, there you go. It seems like you're unfit for monogamy or blah blah whatever.
Well, there you go. I think Javi just cracked the freaking case.
Ding.
Well, yeah, okay. So
what do you think, Hailey? Do you think these people could just be poly?
If he is not with a medical diagnosis that takes away that lens of how he must live in the world, because if he has that on him, he's going to live up to it, and if there's something that he wants to do, then he'll do it and do it guilt-free. He'll just feel bad about how it impacts people. He won't feel bad for doing it. He won't feel like he has a choice. But if that is removed from this lens, any conservative ideas we have, like let's say that diagnosis is not even real, I do feel, and that scene you talked about, that he did want to be honest. He would prefer to be honest. And there was more peace for him when he was honest. And then Frida reacts and she storms away and all that stuff. I do think that Frida wants freedom too. I think that she's very sexual and you just can't bottle that, So I do think that, yeah, polyamory would work for them. I think that based on how they actually are, though, removing that
optimist view, they are not capable of it with the lenses, the perspectives, the societal conditioning that they're up against. If in the world they live in, we were like, have y'all heard of this cool thing? They might think about it in their minds where they keep all their secrets that they don't share with their partner out of fear of argument or confrontation or, whatever else. Then they would, I don't think that with that in their current place, that it would have worked for them. Yeah.
Yeah. But, removing all that stuff, then absolutely, I think it could have worked well. Yeah.
In an ideal world, I guess.
So I guess the bottom line is no. Because we're talking about the characters as they are.
Well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Another person couldn't be saved. Maybe next time. So let's go to Letterboxd.
Okay.
We're going to see what the people think. It's funny. The description just says, prepare to be seduced.
Oh, that's a great description.
A biography of Frida Kahlo.
So do you want to give your rating first?
Yeah. I rate this as... Shoot, I'm actually going to give this 5 stars.
Me too.
Yeah,
5 stars.
5 out of 5 stars. Because what makes a 5-star film for me, if everything is perfect and I emotionally connect with it, if it's also really rewatchable, that's the 5 stars for me. And I could watch this again like a couple of times.
And we will.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a 5 stars for me, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. The Letterboxd doesn't think so, though.
Well, you're
It's
kidding.
an average of 3.6. So
Oh my
about 3.5
God.
stars people think of this movie.
Wild.
So let me read off of this. Okay, well, someone says 3.5. Any reason why this wasn't in Spanish? Well, I get it. It's a film about Mexican people in Mexico, and you want it to be in Spanish. I get it. America is the entertainment industry of the world. No matter what you think, in movies and media and TV shows, America rules, and the United States has.
I have been seeing signs of this as well. So my stepdad is English, and we visited friends and family of his. And it was so funny that one of his friends, we were chatting and we were talking about TV and movies, and she said, "So tell me what American Netflix is like." And I was like, what the hell? Like, I was like, I've never in my life had someone to be like, because it's like, I guess I wasn't necessarily taking it for granted. I'm very grateful for the way that I enjoy my film and how it impacts me. Like, I love it. But thinking about it from a perspective of somebody who wasn't exposed to the same streaming service in the same way is not something that ever crossed my mind. And the fact that she even cared. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that could be, like, I was thinking, well, maybe it's just her, but I just got the vibe that wasn't the case. It felt like I didn't go over there and be like, so tell me what British Netflix is like. Like, it's not something that ever crossed my mind.
Listen, think of the word Netflix. Think of every company, every Forbes 500 company. All those companies are English titles. English is the number one language in the world. Like, if you want a film to be super successful, it's going to have to be English.
That colonizing really worked, huh?
It really did. That's probably why Parasite was like so impressive. Like, a South Korean film won the movies, won everything at the movies. Like, that's a testament to it. But yeah, I also get it. Like, be Spanish, it's Spanish people, but
you got to think of your target audience.
Yeah, listen to reality.
Your target audience is Americans. The primary language is English.
As a Spanish-speaking person, like, there were little moments there where you saw some Spanish come through, and it's like no
I felt
accents
like
or
I was
anything.
learning something.
Yeah, there was no accents or nothing. It was like you could tell that's a Spanish-speaking person. It was like, oh, que bien. Okay, so I was trying to look through reviews, and it's just we have to talk about this. I'm pretty sure you probably didn't come across this because I didn't come across this. But there was a lot of sexual harassment and sexual assault in the making of this film, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to Harvey Weinstein, notorious rapist, basically, who was a huge producer in Hollywood for a very long time.
I heard the name.
Mm-hmm. He sexually harassed and assaulted many people throughout his whole career, and he has his hands in so many films.
That's heartbreaking.
You think of a film he probably did. He probably was involved in it some way.
Lion King.
Maybe. Shoot.
For what? Hairspray.
Probably.
I can only think of musicals.
Look, let me read to you one of these reviews has accounts about Salma Hayek interviewing about this.
Whoa.
Yeah, so she said, quote, "He made me doubt if I was any good of an actress, but he never succeeded in making me think that the film was not worth making. He would let me finish the film if I agreed to do a sex scene with another woman, and he demanded full frontal nudity. My body began to shake uncontrollably. My breath was short, and I began to cry and cry, unable to stop, as if I was throwing up tears. It was not because I would be naked with another woman. It was because I would be naked with her for Harvey Weinstein."
I think I did hear word about her not wanting to do the nude scene with the woman, but I didn't know why. Like, I was never given the reason for that. So I just was like, oh, she wasn't comfortable with that.
Because this sick man, wanted a fantasy fulfilled for him on film.
And forced her to
and
do
it's
it.
like immortalized forever on screen. It's just a little sicko.
Yeah.
3.5 stars from Stephanie. She says, love Frida, hate men. Emma Retton, 2.5 stars, said, thought this was going to be a film about the feminist, bisexual, disabled, badass artist Frida Kahlo, but instead got a 2-hour film about her relationship with boy Diego.
I mean, all of her work and her, like a lot of it is about Diego, so it's just like, that's what mattered to Frida.
Mm-hmm.
Not what mattered to this person. That's not what they wanted to see.
Yeah. This person also said that Salma Hayek is an amazing actress, but no way in hell did you make her hairy enough. You can't just add a unibrow and be like, boom, Frida Kahlo. Where was the mustache and the sideburns and the leg hair and the arm hair? The pubic hair. Come on, people. I guess that kind of shows a little bit of the 2000s there.
I was thinking that too, because I was thinking too, kind of looking at the actor portrayal of Frida and Diego versus, actual Frida and Diego. It reminded me of the interpretations, the actor portrayals of Chicken Little.
What?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So there's this skinny little chicken who's so small, and then his actor portrayal is this like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Brad Pitt looking dude, and he's all buff and he's like, come here, and then his bestie is literally an ugly duckling. And she's got these like overblown teeth, like an overbite perhaps. And, she just looks a little crooked, and her actor portrayal is this like supermodel tall lady who's a duck, doesn't have her features, just like maybe her hair color or the color of her feathers or something like that. That's what I'm talking about though, is that like there was sex in their relationship. It's present. But when they're picking people to portray that, they're picking people that are more objectively attractive. And with Salma Hayek, maybe a lot of people would look at Frida and not see the sex, and especially for the time, maybe not see it. Other people may not be like looking at her unibrow, for example, and being like, that's sexy. But Frida Kahlo is so undeniably sexy, and the way she even portrays it. And we actually looked up her sign too. It was something that I didn't expect, because when I looked at Frida or Salma Hayek as an actress, was she also a Cancer?
Oh, you're talking about Salma.
Yeah,
Oh,
Salma. Yeah, because we looked her up because she was an Ugly Betty, and in Ugly Betty she played a seductress, and I was like, there's so much fire in her performance. It's here, and it was in Frida. We just watched it. So yeah, it was. But it was something that I didn't expect. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, she was a Virgo.
Virgo, yeah. Earth sign. Yeah, and I was expecting a fire sign just based off of how she portrays things, but I think that, because they were trying to portray that fire in an objectively attractive way, they adhered to certain standards that would help a general audience acknowledge the sexual power of somebody they may not ascribe sexual power to, just based on the looks. I personally found Diego to be very homely, but he was a cutie in the movie, like a pudgy, charismatic bear.
Yeah, Doc Ock right there. He's a killer. Well, Spider-Man 2, which might be a movie we cover in the future. I'll try to read off one more. A criticism again, 3 stars. Basic says, I wish the focus was on Frida Kahlo's paintings rather than her relationships. Then this could have been much better. But the editing was insanely amazing. Look, her life was her paintings. Everything about her relationships and her environment and everything she faced, those were her paintings. So, yes, we're going to focus on them because the context is insanely important. That's the point. Is her relationships, is her life.
I'm wondering if we're missing something, because I was looking at, paintings that Frida did, and I saw one where it was like, it didn't look like she was anywhere in it, and I was just kind of like, is there like a small amount of portraits they were focusing on to tell a story, which I still think is more than fine. You know what gets people to the movies? Love and romance. People love that shit. They eat it up. I know I do.
There are plenty of Frida documentaries just focusing on her paintings. I saw enough.
Yeah, so that's what pulls people, is that story. People love a story, and her paintings were packed with them, and maybe that was just a timeline that they could connect throughout her life. But it makes me wonder if people are getting this mad about it, if there's just kind of like a large body of work that has nothing to do with Diego. I'd be very curious to know the answer to that, and if that's why people are getting so heated about it. Heated. There's a lot of fire here. Steam heat.
3-star by Russman. This is why I never take buses anywhere. Me neither. Yeah. I don't like buses. Totally off topic, but on the topic of buses.
What?
When I was in elementary school, I think it was first grade, maybe kindergarten even, I got on the bus because my parents needed to find some way to get me and my brother to school while still going to both of their jobs with one car. All right. So they put me on the school bus, and I went there one day. That one day, I got on that bus, and there were people in middle, high school, college even. I assumed I was in kindergarten. Who knows? I was super small. They were all super big. And I went in the seat right behind the bus driver, and I took a little pillow, and I just sat there a little scared of everybody, all these big kids. And the bus driver went to all these different schools. And then finally mine, once everyone was gone. At one point, one of the big high school kids was like, "You want to come?" And I was like, "No." And everybody else went to their schools. And I finally got to my school, and bus driver was like, "All right, go." And I finally went in, and they were like, when I got to my classroom, they were like, "Where were you? Oh my goodness. We're searching all morning for," it was like 12 o'clock or something. It was like the middle of the day. Like most of the day had gone. I was supposed to get there at 8 a.m. So I was missing in the school's class for 4 hours. It was this whole big deal. And my parents were like, "Where were you?" The principal thought I was skipping school, all these things. I was like, "This is literally the bus driver." No one believed me, not even my parents.
Why did the bus driver say anything?
I have no idea what he was thinking, what happened. I don't know.
Why were you 4 hours late to school?
Why was this bus driver driving me for 4 hours?
Did he not know you were there?
I was the first one. I was right behind him, bro.
He didn't see you.
Bro, Barry was so small that this dude was like, "All right, dropped all the kids. Let me go on the lunch break." And then he come into the bus and was like, "Oh,
let me go, see any other answer for this."
It's so crazy.
He didn't know what to do with you. He forgot which school you belonged to and was too embarrassed to ask.
Bro, I straight out, I'm one of my jobs is being a van driver for an after school program, and nothing even remotely close like that has even happened. I'm like, dude, I know how this works. How the did you let a little kindergarten boy sit behind you for 4 hours without taking it's just
a little creepy.
It was very weird.
Did you get any vibes as a little boy?
No,
vibes.
I was just waiting out, looking outside the window for 4 hours.
You must have been so bored.
I was bored as hell.
Jeez.
Yeah, I didn't even fall asleep because I was so scared.
You were scared?
Yeah, all these big people. So
you did have weird vibes.
Well, it's just big people, no kindergarten, no little kids like me. It was just all big people.
Why were they all big people?
I don't know.
What the hell happened to you?
I don't know. But after that, I don't take buses.
It reminds me of Manifest. where they all go on the plane and disappear and then come back like, "I was just here," and they're like, "No, it's been 7 years."
Yeah. Where were you? I don't know. It was 4 hours later. Oh my God.
I was on a bus.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
There were all these people.
Well.
Okay.
So there we go. That's our review and our discussion on Frida.
Hope you guys enjoyed it.
It's really an amazing movie. I really hope everybody will look into it. I usually find biopics very boring, but I can truly say that this biopic, it was so entertaining and captivating, and I couldn't stop thinking about Frida as a character, as a person. for days.
Me
We watched that a
too.
couple weeks ago, and I'm like,
Still thinking about it.
straight up, I'm not even kidding. It's I can safely say it's my favorite biopic
Oh, wow.
I've ever seen.
That's so
in my
great,
life.
especially because like at the beginning of this podcast, we talked about what it was like for us the last time we were both exposed to the same film, and here we are later, and he's saying that. That's crazy.
Yeah, when I watched it the first time, I knew it was like, yeah, there's some technical good stuff, oh, that was cool, but this sucks, blah blah. But I knew coming into it, it's like, all right, we're gonna watch Frida. I know the same stuff ain't gonna bother me anymore, and I knew it was a good film, so I can't wait. It's gonna be cool. But oh my goodness, it blew me away. That's Frida. Hailey, please transition us. Where are we gonna be next month?
Okay, I'm so excited, Javi. Ava Longoria, Paul Rudd.
The Rudd.
That's why I said it. I knew it would pique your interest. And Lake Bell, who I wouldn't know her name, but when I see her, 2008 film, Over Her Dead Body.
Never heard of this before, ever.
Yeah, it's like very nostalgic for me. It's like a very hidden away, I think, underrated gem. And Paul Rudd is in it.
Bro,
like somebody out there's got to know about this movie.
All you gotta say is the Rudd.
Right? No, it's going to be a great time.
Wow, 2008. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We'll see y'all next month.
See you next time.